It seems that the patchwork quilt is simply a thing sewn from the teeny rests of textiles. But such details make the surrounding us home world especially attractive and cozy. We create the pattern, reminding a ring from a square and a triangle. Such round elements in assemblage can be end pillows and blankets. Such scheme very often used under the name wedding rings of love. Making a patchwork quilt as a gift to a newly married couple in day of Chin's wedding. Today, Tatiana Lazareva wish you home love and peace. Hello, dear viewers. In the last century, Andrea Moreau has very truly noticed that impersonality, similarity, coolness is a true love of the world in which there is no love. Our today's life is full of cares, daily vanity, and in the grayness of everyday life, we want very much to feel creative poses with any fresh paints. Someone thus perfectly cooks soap, someone brings up children, someone grows up remarkable flowers in the garden. And someone, as well as we today, feels these creative poses with patchwork. Patchwork therapy is the unique craft which gives work to hands and a holiday to the soul. Sometimes a man, coming back in memory to his native home, remembers bright details. Today, I suggest try to make such interesting interior thing as patchwork quilt. You can make it any size. I, for the sample, have made such small variant of a children's quilt. It can be at bedside, it can be used to swaddle a baby. All is very simple to make, and the assemblage scheme isn't completely difficult. It seems to me that you can play with the size of elements, with color, and you will have your own quilt. It can be very bright and cheerful as the flower glade, and it can be a gift on Chin's wedding because the pattern is similar to wedding rings. We will pay attention to the size of modules. You can work with any triangle or with any square. I especially took some templates. You can make a small bag if take a small square of size 2 on 2 and an equilateral triangle which sides will correspond to the sides of your square. Between these two figures there should be perfect coincidence. If you use in assemblage such square, you should take here such equilateral triangle. It's very important because they will form a circle. For assemblage, you need only two elements, a square and an equilateral triangle which sides are equal. We will break work into some stages. The first stage. You take the module of the size necessary to you, a square and a triangle. Cut out from fabric the elements corresponding to these sizes. Then, by means of the meshing, you lay a meshing stitch, preliminary pinning up the beginning at the end of your prospective seam by pins. Very important point about the pins. You stick pins strictly at an angle of 19 degrees to a prospective seam. We won't base each element preliminary. We will stitch directly on pins. And one more important detail. You necessarily press each seam in the course of work, if it's possible. The more elements you will process by the iron, the more even model you will have. By the way, the first attempt to create the machine for sewing is referred to the 15th century and here has distinguished the ubiquitous Leonardo da Vinci. Then, there were numerous attempts to create a mechanical hand which would work irrespective of the man. And only in 1845, American Elias Howe has created a pre-production model and has patented it. He has made it very timely because in 5 years one more American, Isaac Singer, has made on the basis of his invention the whole consignment of such machines, which has instantly spread around the world. But through the trial by jury, Elias Howe has demanded that Singer till the end of life paid on $1 from each sold machine, and it has happened. Today it's very difficult to imagine the life of the modern woman without this unique invention. If to connect 6 square and 6 equilateral triangles, you will have a circle. Pay attention, such beautiful circle will need to be ironed necessarily because you will have the even flat form to which other elements will repeatedly join. It's very important correctly to iron margins. If you iron margins and you have the elements from open work, thin or white fabric, that on the front face the seams won't appear, you necessarily lay a paper strip under a seam so that it will prevent exuding of the seam on the front face. Now we will assemble the pattern. If the first circle completely consists from 6 square and 6 triangles, all the subsequent will be shorter because they will consider the elements of the first circle, and that there will be the pattern look on the quilt. The each following element will be shorter on 3 elements. And thus you assemble all chain with holes. All your clothes will consist of transparent slash rings, inside which will be a cut hexagon. In studio, we take only one section of this pattern. It will consist of 3 sections, 3 rings. If you want to have a quilt, you simply will increase quantity of rings. And thus will have your size of the finished thing. Now you can leave the ring slash and can simply add application to put on any fabric, which will be a background, and by secret stitches to fix on the background fabric your rings. And then you will need to connect to a synthetic winterizer and a linen and to quilt all product. Pay attention, it's very important to iron all joint margins in the center of the ring and on perimeter on the product wrong side. It will facilitate the further fixing of pattern on the background. By the way, when we lay a machine stitch, it's very important that numbers of machine needles corresponding to number of sewn threads. So, let's remember, if threads are very thin, including silk, we take numbers of needles 16 or 70 and number of a thread 80 or 100. Stitches 0.15 straight line, a zigzag 0.2. If the fabric is more dense, for example closely woven chintz or satin, numbers of needles 80, 90. Number of threads 60 and stitch 0.2 straight lines and 0.3 zigzag. And if the fabric very dense, a thick woolen cloth or a jeans fabric, numbers of needles 100, 110, 120, number of a thread 40, 50, 35, 45, stitches, zigzag and straight line 0.4. Some useful words about quilting. Strategy will consist of stages which will depend on the sizes of your product. For example, if it's a pillow, all will be unconditional easier. You can pin up by pins 3 layers, a lining, a synthetic winterizer and scrappy top, or simply by temporary stitches and to work on the machine or manually. And if you have the big product, for example a quilt, these 3 layers will need to be fixed necessarily by temporary stitches. How? At first you take a lining. Masters use an adhesive tape. They fix the beginning and the middle of the sides of the lining on the planned surface. It can be a floor of the big table. And then spread a synthetic winterizer on the lining surface. Then take a needle with a strong thread. Work with a thread without knots, because it's temporary stitches which then you remove. Start to lay temporary stitches in such order. At first, from the middle, you keep the needle straight forward and upwards. Then again, from the middle downwards, then to the right, to the left, and they lay diagonal stitches, which also will strongly enough fix all 3 layers. And your work from the middle will level all 3 layers and then will give you the chance to quilt or manually or by means of the machine. If you work on the machine, at first you will need to quilt necessarily all product and then to process the edge. And if you work manually, there is one small secret. Masters go to the trick that all product will be flimsy. At first, the edge is processed and then is quilted manually, because you can regulate by means of own hand needles and placers where you need to have more convex surface or more flat. How we lay stitches? You can lay in flutes of seams, allocating pattern elements, and can, if it's machine pad, to lay or in a semi-flute, or for width of a pad from a semi-right or left, and can be both right and left simultaneously. It's possible to work combine manual and machine stitch. Good luck to you! You have a huge field for textile experiments. The masterclass is finished. Nikolai Zabolotsky wrote that man has 2 worlds, one which created us, another which we will till a century create as much as we can. It's necessary only to join these remarkable words. Let the world round us will be a little brighter and kinder. Good luck and 2 new meetings. With you today there was Tatiana Lazareva.